and welcome. I want to tell you an overview about the animal remain and the animal fauna that we found in the Arabian Peninsula. You can imagine that's just an overview because it's a very great subject. So, and then I want to more focus to the Bronze Age, to recent period. Just an idea to study the relation between the human and the animals. We have four main study sources. The first one is the historical and paleontographical mention. We will have a lot of information for the next in the next presentation. It's about the text, the epigraphy, of course, some religious texts from the books or from the hadith. We have some information about the cooking recipes, especially if we are for the Roman period. We know we have a lot of information. We can, of course, have information from the traveler walking through the Arabian Peninsula. So this is the first source of study. The second, this is the iconography. Iconography, it could be like the picture of animals found on mosaics, on petroglyph, on painting, on sculpture, and on rock carving. I know that we have many communication about this in this session of the conferences. The third one, this is the archaeology. This is the structure. The structure can give us a lot of information. For instance, the desert kite. Really, we'll tell you more about the desert kite after. And of course, my research is the bone remain. So, and then the bone remain, this is the direct witnesses of the presence of animal species since the Bronze Age in the Arabian Peninsula. I just want to give you a very quick definition about archaeology or zooarchaeology. This is the scientific discipline which aims to reconstruct the history of natural and cultural relationships between man and animal via the remain. Remain is bone, teeth, antler, horns. And it's therefore fundamentally different from paleontology, which studies the history and evolution of fossil animal or plant species. So this is the study of the bone that we found from an archaeological excavation. So, of course, you can imagine that this is the leftover, this is the refuse of the food from the ancient inhabitants of the peninsula. Just to say that archaeology is at the crossroads of two scientific disciplines, archaeology and zoology. And just the last definition, this is the taxonomy, because sometimes you heard about this word. This is the science of the burial. Now it's to reconstruct the history of the bone at the death of the animal to the excavation. So what, this is the question, you can imagine, which, just a quick definition about the Arabian Peninsula. So this is all except the Levant. So this includes the 7 countries that you know well: Saudi, Yemen, Oman, Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait, Emirates, and Jordan, and we can include a small part of Syria, especially. So this is more like for geographically and ecologically a system. The Levant is completely different. Of course, maybe we can integrate Iraq sometime, but it's more related to Mesopotamia. And on the right, I show you a map from the different sites I study, or from me or from my colleague, about. We have a lot of information about animal remains. You can see that it's located in 2 big parts of the peninsula. The northwest of Arabia. Actually, this is more related to the recent excavation and research due in the Halula area and Al-Bad in the north, under the BR from the RCU and the NEOM. And we have now a lot of information. It includes the Jordan, the South Jordan. And the second part of Arabia, this is the Gulf, where we have a lot of information from Kuwait to Oman. And then now we can have some information in the south from Yemen and, for instance, from Khorasan. Of course, we have very, very few information from the Hijaz, from the mountain, from the Red Sea, but maybe for the future. So I want to present you very quickly, briefly, all the species that we found in the archaeological excavation from the Bronze Age. You can imagine it's very, very difficult and it's very, very large. We have a lot of animals. We can represent the diversity and the richness of the faunal world. First of all, of course, we can find, this is the most important, this is the mammals. Of course, mammals, because this is sometimes for the majority, the refuse of the human cooking. So this is the breeding and the livestock. We have the herbivore. Herbivore, of course, with the sheep, the goat, the camel. We have some horses, some donkeys, and we have the wild species like oryx, gazelle, or ibex. We have the carnivore. We found a lot of carnivore remains. So carnivore, this is the dog, the cat, the leopard, lion, and we found some rodents like the mouse, the rat, or like the porcupine. I just want to say that all of these animals are not hunted by humans, because we found, because some of the animals die naturally on the side of the prey of the predator, like a carnivore or bird or another animals. So we have. So I continue the system of the big of the animal. We have the insectivora. Insectivora. This is the hedgehog and the shrew. We can find the lagomorph. Lagomorph, you know, this is the hare, the rabbit. Sometimes we can find a lot. Iracoid. Iracoid is a special group of animals. It's the rocky rocks. For instance, we found some rocky rocks in the Rebar area. And Chiroptera, this is the bats. Sometimes we found, especially in the north, in Tadan, we found Chiroptera in Halula area, some bats bone. And the marine mammal. Marine mammal, you know, this is the dugong, or the dolphin, or the whale. We can find a lot of birds. So bird, it's very difficult for me to give you a list of the bird, because we can find all of the type of bird, from the sparrow to the ostrich. Maybe we have a special mention from ostrich, because ostrich is only represented by eggshell fragments. And of course, we have a lot of raptor. After we have the pisces. The pisces is the fish. With fish, we can distinguish the bony fish and the cartilaginous fish. This is the shark. So, like for the bird, we have a lot of species, you can imagine, because between the Red Sea and the Gulf or the Oman Sea, we can have a lot of species and family of fish. Then we can find some reptile, of course, turtle, lizard, with a special case from the dab. I will back to the snake. We can find frog. I found frog in the Jordan, not so far from the river. And of course, we can find mollusca. Mollusca, this is like for the fish. This is the seashell. We have a lot of seashell. Seashell everywhere, from Aqaba until to Failaka in Kuwait. So we can have a huge diversity of seashell. We can find arthropoda, the crab, and of course we can find 2 sea urchins. So this is just a list to have an overview of the different species which reflect the diversity and the richness of the animals species. So go back now, just very quickly. You can imagine that the most important for the bones, this is the sheep and goat. I say caprine because for me it's very difficult with a small fragment of bone, very fragmented, very. We found fragmented on the side to do the distinction between sheep and goat. But sheep and goat, since the domestication, we can say around 8,000 BC There was maybe actually one or two area of domestication. There are the fertile question, but now we know that there is in Iran an area from the domestication. This is the main species for the inhabitants, because we have a lot of meat, milk, wool, and then this is a good animal to live in the desert area. And of course, we have the camel. So camel with the only thing that the camel, the domestication of the camel, it's 800 BC, so it's really recent. And before we have just only wild camel, especially in the Oman and Emirate area, but it's very recent. So this couple of animals is very important for the inhabitants of the Arabian Peninsula, which is the main staple food for the nomads or for the people living in the border. I just want to tell you a small picture about the pig. The pig is very, very rare, and then contrarily to the Levant, where pig is omnipresent in the diet. In ancient times, the presence of pig has been marginal in the Arabian Peninsula. A limited quantity of pig bones have been discovered in some sites in the northwest Arabia, but also in the Gulf region. This is interesting because the pig in the northwest Arabia is really related to the Nabatean. We found in Negra, we found in Al-Bad, and then we have in Mema, in Darir, in Petra. So we can say that the pig found in this part is more related from people are connected with the Levant. The other part where we can find pig, this is in the Gulf, especially in Failaka, in the Tel Said site, which is the Seleucid, so we can say that this is maybe the Greek people arrived with the pig and then bred the pig. Actually, I have I didn't find some mention of the wild bird in Saudi Arabia, not in my collection, but even in the literature. So now what's important, so we saw that this is the main domestic animals. I don't mention about horses or a donkey, but maybe we can have the occasion to discuss about this in the following communication. So in the Arabian Peninsula, the most important herbivore species, first is the gazelle. We find gazelle everywhere. So I say gazelle in the large because there are many species of gazelle, and sometimes with just a fragment of bone, it's difficult to know if it's the mountain gazelle, the Arabian gazelle, or the Gotthard gazelle. So it's a little bit complicated, but gazelle is important. Before the Bronze Age, but Remy, we can talk after with the Zakat gazelle are very important for the inhabitants of the area. Another species, this is oryx. Of course, here in Qatar, you know well oryx. Yeah, there was a lot of program of reintroduction for the oryx. In the past, the oryx is not very abundant, except maybe in some sites in the Emirates or in the center of Arabia, like in Duman al-Jandal. Another species, this is the Nubian ibex, very, very rare. For me, it's difficult to understand, to find if it's a domestic or a wild animal only by a fragment of bone. We know that it's present, especially in the northwest Arabia, in the region of Al-Bad, we have this, and of course in Ribar, for older periods, like in the Mustatir, we know that there is some ibex present. We have air, this is very common, and the question of the aurochs. For the wild species, I have no traces of aurochs bone. All of the big bovines present in the sites and the brandage is domestic. I don't know if it's present or no, but we have no traces. So I think we can have, this is another question that's very recurrent for the zooarchaeologists and the archaeologists, but this is interesting. Just a quick question about the carnivores. So of course, We are always focused about the leopard, the panthera. It's very rare. Now we know that there is a lot of reintroduction of these animals in Arabia, especially in Saudi, in Halula, for instance. Now we know that. It's very rare. We find only 1 or 2 bones. Never forget that these animals are nocturnal and solitary. It's not, so this is what is difficult. And this is the same for the lion. Lion is very well represented in petroglyphs, but on bones. I found only 1 teeth in Taj, in Saudi, and 4 specimens of bones of lion in the citadel of Amman in Jordan. But this could be like a female in captivity by the Roman. So this is very, very rare. This is the same for the wolf. Wolf, if you look at, for instance, in the books from the actual animals living in the Arabian Peninsula, we found wolf. For the archaeology, it's difficult. I have no traces. Maybe in Mubele, in the Emirates. So wolf is always the same problem that from sheep and goat. It's difficult to identify with the dog, domestic dog. Another animal very present and this is the hyena. Hyena is we have a lot of hyena actually in the different country, and hyena is interesting because they live in the den, in the cave, and it's a scavenger, so they brought a lot of bones in the cave. So we have some information of these animals, not hunted by people, but we don't know. But we know that you have hyena, for instance, in the Khibar area, in the lava tube, but also in Jordan, in the Azraq area. And another animal very anecdotic, this is the honey badger that I found some bones in Al Yamama, in the center of not so far from Riyadh, and the white-tailed mongoose. This is the only carnivore present in the Farasan Island in Saudi. So this is interesting. Of course, I didn't mention the cat, the dog, and the red fox, because the red fox is very, very common everywhere from the different periods. So for the bird. For the bird, it's a little bit complicated because I told you we have a huge diversity. And this is like for many animals, all the birds do not have an anthropogenic origin. Some live and die naturally in settlement, like for nesting. Others are the result of predation by carnivores, dog, cats, foxes, which carry their prey to the site, particularly during the phase of abandonment of the site. We can maybe summarize the different types of bird, like in Eco Group, published by Henriette Kroll from Germany. And then, of course, the problem is that certain species may belong to several groups due to the ubiquitous nature of some of them on the landscape mosaic existing in the vicinity of an archaeological site. First one, the domestic species. So this is the big question, the problem of the question of the chicken. I have very, very, very few chicken bones in this area. Very, very. So, contrary to the Levant, where chicken is very, very abundant, still the Hellenistic period, we have no chicken. So, contrary that we found today in the food, for instance, here in Qatar or everywhere, there was no chicken in the cooking for the ancient habitants. Why? Question of ecology, question of we can have this question, but very, very few chicken. There are other domestic bird species, maybe it's the pigeon, so we can find, for instance, some dovecote in Jordan, but the same, it's difficult to know if the pigeon are domestic or it's a wild pigeon. So we can find that the bird that dwell in cultural landscape, this is the partridge, the quail, the stork. Stork is interesting because it's a migratory species, so sometimes we can find some bones. We can have a lot of waterfall. I told you about the cormorant. Cormorant is well abundant in the Gulf. For For instance, in Bahrain or in Kuwait, in Oman, we can find a lot of cormorant, the two species, the great cormorant and the cormorant of Socotra, hunted by the people. So, and then we can have the forest-dwelling bird. This is the bird of prey, the raptor. So, and then we have the bird that live in arid and semi-arid habitat, like the cursor, the Ubara bustard, the Ganga, and etc. And then I just said the case of ostrich. The ostrich, I told you before, it's just we have just only eggshell. This is the question of the living of the ostrich in the area. In this picture, I just present you very quickly what we found in Taima. In Taima, this is northwestern Arabian, not so far. It's not just near Iraq, but it's maybe like 100 kilometers. And then in this site, my colleague from Berlin found a lot of raptors. So you have the list here. We can find vulture, we can find eagle, kite, dozer. So this is really interesting. But I don't know why in this place we have a lot of raptors. So maybe it's not for food, it's for captivity. I don't know. So this is a good question. So very quickly now, just tell you about the dab, the spiny-tailed lizard, because it was for me and for my colleague. In Hajj, I found a lot of dab bones. So dab is present in archaeological site in center of not so far from Riyadh, and it's hunted by and eaten by the people. Very quickly now for the fish. So it's impossible to give you the list of the different species of family of fish. I just put in this picture what we do, and then it's under publication in Al-Bad. So it's in the north, it's in the Aqaba Gulf, and just told you that we have a lot of parrotfish. Parrotfish is very common in the Red Sea, less common in the Gulf. We have a lot of species. Then the marine mammal. So marine mammal is more located in the Gulf area. I just told you that the different sites that we found in the Emirates, in Kuwait. We have the dugong. Of course, dugong is well known from the Neolithic in Oman and in Emirates. And then I just put you two pictures of whale and dolphin that we found in the medieval site in Kalat in Oman. It's hunted by and consumed by inhabitants. And just for finish, we have a picture here that we can find some more exotic animals like crabs, sea urchin, and cuttlefish. And of course, I forgot the seashell. So I just take you that the different types of seashell. The seashell is interesting because they can use for consumption, for manufacture of objects like bracelet, necklace, ring. They can use as a container, as a currency with the curry, and for the search for pearl and mother of pearl with the famous Pintada, Margarita Ferra that we found a lot here in the Gulf area. So the picture. So just a conclusion very quickly. I just give you an overview. You can imagine that in 20 minutes it's a little bit complicated for me to present an exhaustive list. But I just want to tell you that we have a lot, of course, in Zooarchaeology, a lot of domestic animals. This is normal because we do archaeology. This is not natural science. And for me, the most important is when I pull together all the information from the different sites, from the different country, and from the different chronological age, we have a good association allows us to behind the back noise of left by the thousands of bones of caprine and camel, we managed to find almost the current specific diversity and richness in the Arabian Peninsula. Thank you very much. Thank you for your attention.